Lights up a little more. Hey, episode 200. That's a milestone. We're probably really at like 210, but I'll take 200, man. I've been on all 200 episodes, which is crazy. I never really wanted to do podcasting. Never even thought that people would care to listen to a Nets podcast, but look at the future. Here we are. All right. Wild weekend for the Nets. Hit it, Alex.
We're doing that Brooklyn Nets talk right here on Talkin Nets. Brooklyn, we go hard. Go hard. Talkin Nets. Hosted by Keith McPherson, Robin Lundberg, and Hudson
Flynn. Yes, sir. Welcome back to Talkin Nets, episode 200. Yeah. If we had like a soundboard, I'd do the and then like the kids like yay. What's up, guys? Welcome in. Wild weekend for your Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, I haven't been here for a lot of that 200, but I feel like with the vibes and the presence, I get to be the Mikal Bridges.
Hey, I'm not. Hey, we are glad to have you. We appreciate your presence in Talkin Nets. Hey, if you want to be Bridges, Brooklyn Bridges, I'm all for it. What a welcome addition both of you guys have been to our Nets world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it feels great to be at 200. Obviously, we've been back for a while to the more standard form of Talkin Nets, not forcing Keith to do it all on his own for a season. And it's been good, and the support from everybody watching the show and listening on podcast apps has been absolutely unreal. It feels like despite all the turmoil in the Nets world, the community that we have here has always been like real solid. They've always been with us. It's been great.
The little podcast that could, I swear, between the team and all of the nonsense that has gone on with the team in 4 years since we started this podcast, and then just behind the scenes, all the changes and all the different things that I've gone through, that Hudson's gone through, and now Robin's a part of, like to keep a podcast like this going from 2019 to now, there were at least 5 to 10 times where I could have said, I'm done. Fuck it.
More than that,
we're not
Keith.
doing it. More. Honestly, more. There was plenty of times where I was like, I don't know. But what I do know is that this team is worth it. This fan base is worth it. You hear me a lot of times say this Nets world has been built. And what I mean by that is what we're seeing right now, right? There are a lot of fans that jump ship. There are a lot of stans and NBA fans that unfollowed us or even left stupid comments on our Instagram or Twitter. And I'm glad we filtered them out. This is just a different vibe, a different energy, and a different feeling. Wild weekend for the Nets. You get an overtime win that shouldn't have been an overtime game, but it is what it is. We'll talk about it. We'll take it, though, because second half of a back-to-back after you rested your starters, you punted a game, and then it looked like a game that the Nets could win, but they were never going to win that game. I want to clear that. I know we had the pod Thursday, I think, going into that game. The Nets were never winning that game against the Bucks, whether Giannis played, whether whoever played, whether they got more minutes. The whole thing was that the organization decided we can't beat the number one team in the East. We're going to rest guys. Fine. But when you do that, you better come out and win the next game. And they got this close, literally this close to losing both games in that back-to-back. They handle business. Then you go from Minnesota to Denver and face Nikola Jokic, the MVP and the number one seed in the West, and you do hold on to beat them. You're fifth in the standings, and now everybody's looking at the Nets without KD and Kyrie like maybe they did make the right decision. Maybe they do have something here. I know there's still some weirdo Nets fans that are talking about the offseason. I see all these tweets on Nets Twitter about, in the offseason, who do you guys want? Maybe we should target this guy.
Joe Tsai's got to go, Keith. He's got to get fired.
Yeah, Sean Marks coming back. I'm in this season, and I'm excited about what these guys could do the rest of this season. The never know Nets, we didn't know. When the second half started, they lost 4 in a row. We're like, I don't know, they might be cooked. But they fought. They figured it out. I'm not mad that Cam Thomas is on the bench because I root for the Nets. I want to see the Nets win. I want to see the Nets avoid the play-in tournament because if they do that, they've already done something that KD and Kyrie didn't do last year. And if they win one game in this playoffs, they are already better than the 7-11 era from last season, the way that they went out. I'll let you guys go and give your initial thoughts.
Well, it is funny when you think about everything that's transpired, right? The amount of content that we've gone through, the amount of changes that the team has gone through in just a year, it is pretty remarkable. As far as where the team is at right now and the state of it, actually, Hudson, my kids are all leaving the house for my son's basketball practice. So why don't you take it while they exit, and then I'll finish my thought.
Awesome. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, no, I think, first off, Keith making all those comments about how frankly, how low the bar is for this Nets team to be considered successful compared to the last couple of years. I mean, when you think about it, we had one run, and KD's, extra size up shoe made it so that didn't go. But other than that, it's first round exits. It's the bubble season. It's nothing really impressive. And this team, after getting blown up in the middle of the season, all of the stands and the fake fans jumping ship, have proven not only to the fans, not only to the organization, but also I would have to imagine a little bit to themselves, that they are a real competitive, contending basketball team. And that is not just something for them to be proud of, it's something for the fans to be proud of. And despite, like he said, there's a lot of people who are only looking ahead to the future, and a lot of people on Twitter that still are lost in what could have been with the 7-11 era. The reality is this Nets team going forward is young. They're fun. They're in a great position to win. And not only is that winning something that's going to happen in the future, not only is it projected winning, but it's also winning that we are doing in real time. I know the Nuggets are on a skid right now, but we beat the number one team in the West. The T-Wolves are a team that is fighting to get off of that bubble in the Western Conference. And we beat them. And we had a good showing with basically exclusively our bench players against the Bucks. This is a team that has gotten blown up and has won despite it all. And I know I don't want to, raise a championship flag, put a banner up in the Barclays Center for 7-7 since the KD trade, but based on the reactions, based on what everyone said was the most colossal failure in NBA history, it is almost shocking, and you have to give credit to Jacques Vaughn, Sean Marks, the whole organization, that the Nets have been able to get themselves to this point where not only are they succeeding on the court, but they have won back a lot of the fans that they may have lost from blowing up the previous era.
What the hell? I'm going to go all in. As of now, the Nets won the trade. They won the trade. Things could change. It could be a win-win. If the Suns win a championship with KD, obviously that's a win for them, right? That's a win for them. But I don't see this being a loss for the Nets. And I'm sick and tired of the people who keep crying about KD and Kyrie. Stop crying about KD and Kyrie. You have a good thing going. I mean, when you talk about the offseason, the reason the offseason is relevant is because the Nets have the assets to make a move and maybe bring, another star player in this offseason if that's how they choose to do things and be right back to contender status. But in the meantime, you got a team that's fun to watch, fun to root for. They've been the best defense in the league for this 6-game stretch. They've got a budding superstar, perhaps in Mikal Bridges. And I've tried to explain this to my friends, some of my friends on a text thread, my SI coworkers who keep giving me crap about this. And I'm like, you don't understand. I enjoy rooting for and watching this team more than I ever did the KD, Kyrie era team. Like, I know there was supposed to be a championship contender, and maybe they, would have won the year Harden got hurt and Kyrie got hurt and KD's foot was there. Maybe, that should have been their year. But other than that, they were never actually sniffing title contention. And instead, it was a constant soap opera and a constant anxiety attack. You always had to deal with that. Like, what's the other shoe? Speaking of KD's shoe being short, when is Kyrie going to put up a post that it's impossible to decipher? And once you actually decipher, you realize, it has a terrible meaning or something. Whatever the point may be. KD getting hurt. KD has averaged 44 games a season over the last 3 seasons while missing the first season he was here. So I'm not crying about that anymore. And so I try to explain that to him. And here's maybe a way I can hammer this home. And this is probably because they went to the game with me. The first game that Bridges and those guys played Johnson and Bridges at least. Dinwiddie had played the game before, but it was at Barclays. It was that Sixers game. My kids went with me. We sat with the brigade on the block, right? And so they're in an area where people are cheering louder than other places, but you get caught up in the vibe. Like I've now seen my youngest son chanting like defense and let's go Nets, and he's not even 2. But the older 2, Raj and Ronnie, they stayed up and watched the entire overtime on Friday night. Raj asked, when's the next game? He watched that Nuggets game with me yesterday. We jump and we hug and celebrate when that shot doesn't go with 1.9 seconds left. They weren't doing that before. I don't know if it has. I don't know if it's because it's like a new thing and a jumping off point, and I've been like selling it to them. I don't know if it was that experience, but something about it just feels good. And I am thrilled. I'm thrilled with the state of the team, the direction of the team, and even where the team is currently. And I'm sick and tired of people crying about what was when what wasn't anything.
It feels better. It fits better. It feels like this is more of the team Brooklyn should have, right? When you're watching KD and Kyrie, it came with a lot of drama, a lot of pressure, and not enough results. To be honest with you, it was just like all of this national attention of this super team and all this other stuff around KD and Kyrie, but where were the results on the floor? We didn't really do anything. Regular season wins in December, like what does it matter? Like at the end of the day, they were all flash and little substance, right? Injuries and negative headlines and BS. This team fits more and you can get behind them more because it's a cast of guys that are good, that are talented, but not 1 or 2 guys that are going to dominate the ball, dominate all the people watching and all the conversation. Like Royce O'Neal can rise. Like Dorian Finney-Smith can rise. What a pleasant surprise to watch some of these guys just come out of nowhere and hit shots and make rebounds and have a big game. It is a team. They're getting stops together. And I just feel like, when you tell a story about your kids, yeah, it's a different group because when you're watching KD and Kyrie, you almost know how it's supposed to end. One of those guys is going to have the ball. One of those guys is supposed to take the shot. With this team, you're on the edge of your seat. Like, what's going to happen next? Will they get this stop? Who's going to hit the 3? And they have to buy into the togetherness. They have to buy into the team mentality. And for all of us that have played sports and watch sports growing up, that's what we're taught. And your kids are playing organized sports. There are no stars. They have to buy into the fact that, like, to win, we have to win together. And I think we're getting that vibe from Brooklyn.
Keith,
now.
And when we lose together. I think that's kind of an underrated point with this whole Nets team. The way the post-game press conferences would go, and not naming names, but certain players would just collapse with these losses, and it would be finger pointing, and it would be blaming, and it would be, people are ignoring the work I do behind the scenes. So why do you care about the fact that when we lose, we can say, oh, well, we lost because we missed this shot, but we'll get up and get ready for the next one. And when we lose, we're not losing because of injuries. We're not losing because players don't want to play, because of a vaccine, because of anti-Semitic posts, because of none of that. So, like, it's not even just the fact that we're winning. Even when the going was tough in the early era of when this new team got put together, even those wins those losses I could feel proud of, just because we had a team that was losing for basketball related reasons. The bar is the floor when it comes to the emotional connection we have to the Nets. And the fact that we have a team that is playing together now, I think is huge in wins and in losses.
Well, they're likable guys, right? I mean, they're likable guys who most of them have been around the league. And then, like I said, it's a good mix of certain things where you have Mikal Bridges, who I don't think anybody saw this. Like, we all hoped he was going to be good. You hear, 4 first-round picks. I don't think anybody saw what this has been and the ascension that Bridges is on. He's averaging 26 a game since he came to the Nets, 50, 40, 90 shooting while playing elite defense. And you could see him expanding his game, like those off the dribble threes that he's taking more regularly. So I don't know what his ceiling is yet. It's exciting to see him keep pushing that higher, where you're like, oh, are we watching someone become a superstar in front of our eyes? Then you got a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, who sort of became a guy in Brooklyn, went around, bounced around, didn't really find that home in his back. And I know some fans are complaining about him at times, and he does pound the ball a little bit, but he's also playmaking for this team down the stretch of games. And
6-to-1 assist to turnover ratio over his last 4 games.
Exactly. He's hitting clutch shots and he's setting up teammates for clutch shots. Friday night, he's the one who kicked it out to Bridges, who hit the three. I believe he kicked it out to Finney Smith in the corner as well. And yesterday's game, he was picking on Jokic. He was orchestrating the offense to make sure that they were getting him in positions to attack him. So he's doing things like that. Then you got Cam Johnson, who's like sort of a glue guy. You got Royce O'Neal, who you mentioned, Keith, who was here before, but it has really seemed to find a role with this current team. Even somebody like Joe Harris, who we've been very harsh on, but is playing spot minutes and is doing what he's supposed to do in those
Seth Curry sucked, bro. All of a sudden, Seth Curry is hitting shots, making plays in Denver. I'm like, what's going on? That's team. You're relying on the team. Joe Harris has sucked, but he was able to emerge. Think about the Knicks game when Spencer Dinwiddie took all those shots and the Nets lose to the Knicks, I think the first time. We're like, what the hell is Spencer doing? And Spencer drives me crazy. He drives me nuts with the complaining to the refs every fucking play. Like, bro, get back on defense. Stop crying the whole game. But what I'll say is he is a Net that was with our former Nets, our OG Nets. I appreciate him taking a leadership role and figuring out what he has to do to help lead this team. I'm not mad at him. I can handle it. And I think he's going to get better as we get later in the season and head into a playoff series. Hopefully he'll stop crying. Hopefully he'll stop making so many mistakes. I know people wanted to kill him when the game went to overtime against the Timberwolves, but whatever, they won. They are figuring out how to win as a team.
And someone we haven't mentioned, but we got to talk about Nick Claxton, who has shown, first off, that the narrative that, oh, he's sad that the Stars left and he's not playing well. He dispelled that, threw that out completely. Him against the Denver Nuggets was one of the most impressive performances, not only from him, but one of the most impressive performances I've seen just in the NBA this season, seeing him hit his free throws, which I think people clown Nets fans for being like, oh, well, it's amazing. Nick Claxton's hitting 67% of his free throws. That eliminates Whack-a-Clacks.
That's
whatever.
A big improvement.
Big improvement. He said he hit 8 of 9 shots. He got his rebounds.
The Celtics series last year, how the season ended.
Exactly.
That's what he had to work on.
He is showing he's showing everybody, Mitchell Robinson, I guess, included, that he is a budding star in this league. And despite all of the turmoil that has surrounded the Nets, he has been a consistent positive. He's been a consistent positive, and he has shown that he is not only a good defensive player, but his offensive game is really blossoming as well. And it's amazing to see.
You know, before the previous incarnation of the team, you always knew where it was eventually headed, right? Like it was pretty clear it was headed for a crash landing. You were just hoping beyond hope, you know, that you could right the ship and get on the tarmac one time before that, you know, it eventually didn't take off again. Now there's a present and a future. When you talk about the future, you're talking about all the draft picks that they have, the movable salaries that they have, the players that have value for other teams that they have. When you're talking and the potential growth of Bridges. When you're talking about the present, you know, okay, they won 5 out of 6 games. They're the best defense over those 6 games. They got a good group. They're knock on, I guess this is glass in front of me, but knock on that, they are very, very unlikely to fall into the play-in now. I think they're 4 losses ahead of Miami in the loss column. The Hawks lost this weekend too. I think they're still technically ahead of the Knicks now. And we were just talking about the rough part of their schedule. They're almost through that. I mean, they're winning in the rough part of their schedule on the road. You know, they won in Boston. They won in Minnesota. They won in Denver. So I'm not saying they're going to win the championship or anything, but they are competitive. They are going to be in the playoffs. I don't think they're a team to be taken lightly and that you can just expect to roll over. And then if they lose or when they lose, it's not it. That's right. Not it. The world doesn't fall apart. You go, all right, how do we take the next step?
And they will get better. I was in the chat talking to, I forget who it was, talking about a star. We need a star. I'm like, that's next year. We know that. Like, we're not worried about stars. We got the stars out of here. The last star that we got to figure out how to get the fuck out of here is Ben Simmons. He's the last dramatic one. That the drama surrounding him, if you notice, they're pretty much telling you he's not coming back. Like Jock Vaughn was non-committal. It's in the New York Post. Nets Jacques Vaughn non-committal on Ben Simmons returning this season. Nobody cares at this point, right? They signed Nerlens Noel. We'll speak on him. He had some trouble. Honestly, I was looking at Nerlens Noel, like, get him off the floor. And they did. But, like, they signed a backup center because they can't rely on Ben Simmons to play center. And, I mean, I think the Glue guys came out with a tweet yesterday that Nets Twitter was not feeling about, like, this team, and I don't want to verbatim say it, but they were, like, talking about how this team would be great with the old version of Ben Simmons. Stop dreaming. Stop even hoping that this guy is going to emerge as he was in 2019. It's almost impossible. So the Glue guy said, I know I really shouldn't say this, like, just enjoy the moment, but this current Nets team is the perfect team to surround the old version of Ben Simmons. Where is that? That doesn't exist. My neck, my back, my neck, and my back. The guy's got a neck injury, back injury, sore knee, eyelash. This team is winning without him. You think
That's like
they want to
saying this
see
team
him?
is the perfect team for prime Michael Jordan.
You think they want to
It's a
see
player that
Ben
does not
Simmons
exist
come
in the
off the
NBA.
bench and fuck this up right now with what they're figuring out? Edmund Sumner back. Like, they're figuring out who is who, what is what, and who they can depend on this team. Ben Simmons is not one of those guys. He wasn't in KD Kyrie era. He isn't now. So they can just keep telling the media, oh, yeah, well, his back has inflammation. We're managing the back and the knee. Do that for the next 2 months, and the season is over. Right now, I am looking at this Nets world as a team of scrappy veterans, a coach that wants to prove something, that's a basketball guy. I can tell they're watching film. They watch film at halftime. They're not a bad second half team. I don't ever feel like I'm really out of it. A couple weeks ago, I was like, well, they don't have a shot. Right, when they played tough against the Bucks in the first half and then they crumbled in the third, I'm like, oh, these guys ain't got it. But they're figuring it out. I'm cool with what I'm seeing from the Brooklyn Nets. I can root for these guys. They're getting me fired up. I said after the deadline and the way that they lost 4 games, like, man, I'm not pulling up the Barclays Center. The never know Nets. They reel me back in. Let's go. Let's see what else they can do without a star. Let's see where they land in the seedings. I told y'all from the jump, all I want this team to do is better than KD and Kyrie's team did last year. And that to me, and that's what Hudson said, how low the bar is set. That to me is realistic. That's in our sights right now. They knocked off the number 1 seed in the West with the MVP. Like, these guys are feeling
the number
themselves.
1 seed in the East.
They knocked off the Celtics. And say what you want about the Bucks, I don't think they would have won that game, but they were competing with their G League team. So I'm not putting a ceiling on what these guys can do, but I'm excited to watch the rest of this season. And I don't feel like some of these Nets fans that just, we're out off season, or KD and Kyrie are here, no reason to watch this team. The vibes around this team are very good, very positive. Can we please show what Mikal Bridges wrote on Instagram after the game? I like it here a lot. And that's a post from the second day that Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson were here. They sent them out to do charity work in Brooklyn.
Right after the trade. They went to public school.
I don't even think they played yet. I remember the video of Bridges goes out. He signed his name and he signed number 25. And Cam Johnson clowned him like, you're not 25 anymore. You're 1, bro. Get it together. These guys like it here. Well, if you listen to NBA Twitter and Nets Twitter, you would think this is the worst organization in the world to play for. Joe Tsai and Sean Marks are terrible. No stars are ever coming here. Well, then don't send any stars. Let's keep finding guys that want to play team basketball and win.
Well, look, I think that post encapsulates the feeling that we're talking about right now. And Mikal Bridges is a rising star at this moment in time. I mean, I stated the numbers before. His game continues to grow, and he feels like he belongs here. I looked at that post, and I saw so many Suns fans in the comments upset about it because they were thinking he was coming back in 2026. Reality is setting in. He's the cornerstone of this franchise, and they're going to build around him. Some of these guys will be a part of that. But if you go also and look in those comments, I think I saw Seth Curry in there. I saw Royce O'Neal in there. I saw Nick Claxton in there. I saw Cam Johnson in there. I saw Patty Mills in there. The entire team, Spence in there. The entire team is in the comments. These guys like each other. They like each other. They want to play for the front of the jersey as well as the back of the jersey. And I see a premium chat from Pimp named Slickback. He says, I like Cam, obviously referencing Thomas, but I trust what JV wants to do with him. What we're doing now is working. Our new identity is defense first. We haven't been a good defensive team consistently since Kidd and Mark. And here's another thing. I told people to stop crying about KD and Kyrie. Stop crying about Jacques Vaughn, too. He's the guy. He's the guy. He's the right guy for the job. They got it right with the head coach. By the way, Sean Marks looks like the right guy to be the GM. Go ahead, Hudson.
Not for nothing. At what point, and we talked about this earlier in the season during the 20-2 run, at what point do we reintroduce Jacques Vaughn to the Coach of the Year discussion? Right? I mean, not only what he did with KD and Kyrie, but having his entire team and franchise blown up in the middle of the season. If the Nets hold on to this 5 seed, or even they can rise as high as the 4 seed, do you have to include him in those discussions? I think you do.
You know,
what his coaching job is, it's been shockingly impressive.
It's funny because with that microscope that comes with KD and Kyrie, I guess some of that attention doesn't get put there. Like with Claxton not necessarily being in the defensive player of the year conversations, even though really nothing has changed. But yeah, I mean, rationally, of course, I think that's right. And Keith, you had mentioned being better than KD and Kyrie were last year. The team of those guys are. Right now, the Nets are ahead of both the Suns and the Mavericks in the standings. Now, some of that was work that was done earlier in the season. But if you look at it, the Mavs are not doing well. The Mavs are in danger of falling out of the play-in. Forgetting just the playoffs, they're in danger of falling out of the play-in. Something's up with Kyrie now.
And the Suns are falling into it.
Yeah, and the Suns obviously don't have Kevin Durant for a stretch here and have a tough schedule coming up. And when you trade away Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and then you lose Kevin Durant, that's you're not going to have a deep team. That's just the way that things go. So I just don't know how anyone couldn't be thrilled with the current state of affairs for this team, because the only thing you're holding on to is an imaginary thing that never was.
There's credit to go all around, and I like that too. It isn't just coming on the pod, oh my God, Kyrie went off for 60. It isn't just coming on the pod, oh, KD had 40, he's automatic, but took over the game. Like every night, there's somebody that's catching your attention where you're like, man, like Royce O'Neal spent time in Utah where he learned about Rudy Gobert's game. That came to play in the game against Minnesota. He said it in the post game. Yeah, I know his moves. I was in practice with him for 4 years. Like, comes in handy for us. These guys, there's all of these, and we can go through the box score. These guys could have fumbled that game, but they gut it out and win. I'll take these 1-point wins on teams that technically you're not supposed to beat. Who else balled in that game? And I see in the chat you guys are talking about Spencer. Please stop talking about injuries that did not happen yet. Like, why are we talking about, like, Spencer gets hurt? Who's our backup point guard? That is the doom and gloom that Nets fans need to, like, turn that shit down, right? Turn that all the way down. Nobody is getting hurt. We're fine. Ben Simmons is hurt, and that's the only injury that we really have to report. Okay, back to the game Friday night, man. I ended up getting a flat tire, so I didn't get to see the fourth quarter overtime, but I went back and watched the highlights. Like I already mentioned Royce. It doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet, but him being able to guard Rudy Gobert, like it helps. And you know what? As we're talking about Nerlens Noel, I think I put a tweet out. Who would you like to see as the backup center more? Nerlens Noel, I know he's only 4 games in as a net, or Day'Ron Sharpe. I mean, honestly, neither one. But if you can move Doe or if you can move Royce to the 5 in some situations, I'll take it, depending on who we're facing off against. And then that carried over. Like, Rudy, if you could do it to Rudy Gobert, see if you could do it to Jokic. And he could. Like, between Royce and Dorian Finney-Smith playing some minutes in the paint at the 5, it works. Obviously, Nick Claxton is the guy. You're going to get some minutes with Nerlens Noel, but he's been out of the league. He's not there yet for this high competition that the Nets are facing. Like, his speed obviously is more like the Rockets game or the game that you punted against the Bucks, but, you know, he'll be there. Anybody else that you guys want to give credit to? I feel like we gave some credit to Joe Harris. We gave some credit to, and not Joe Harris, not for the Timberwolves game. He played 8 minutes. He put up 3 zeros. Cam Thomas played 5 minutes. He had 1 point. Seth Curry has been better after he had an absolute stinker in front of his pops when the Charlotte Hornets came to Brooklyn. I feel like that one wore on him, and now he's more locked in. Mikal Bridges is good for 30, and when he's not good for 30, he's still getting 25. Like, his off night is still 25. Nick Claxton deserves a ton of credit for his rebounding, his scoring. Did I see him shoot a jump shot? Yes,
he
we
hit a
all
midi.
did.
He hit a midi yesterday.
We
Nick
all
Claxton
we all
baseline J.
like a contested baseline J that I didn't know he had in his bag. Watch him though. He has a lot in his bag. There's
You
never
remember
a
like
time.
4 years ago when he hit a 3 against the 76ers?
Yeah,
It's
that
coming
was
back.
different. That was young Clax. That was different hype that we had seeing him do that. But there's never a time where that man gets the ball and he doesn't have a move ready. He gets the ball in the paint, and wherever the defender is, he knows what move he's gonna do. I was saying it to one of my boys. I'm like, man, I wish I was good at basketball like that. To like get the ball in a certain spot of the floor and immediately know this is the move I've worked on. This is how I'm gonna score. Nick Claxton's bag is deeper offensively than people realize.
Dorian Finney-Smith, he deserves a little love too. And part of that is also I think we sort of touched on this, but before you knew you had two of the we could say whatever we want. Everybody recognizes the talent of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. You had two of the greatest isolation scorers who have ever walked the face of the earth. And down the stretch of games, you knew that there was always a chance they could hit a shot, and they could hit numerous shots, whatever the case may be. But watching these games, the Wolves game and the Nuggets game specifically, it's interesting to see because you're almost not relying on this team scoring necessarily. A couple of clutch buckets, obviously, the Bridges 3, the Dorian Finney-Smith 3, some of the plays that Dinwiddie has set up, but it's getting stops. I mean, they're getting stops. Naz Reid hit the 3 to tie it, but for the most part, a 1-point lead is being held for like 3 consecutive possessions, and that feels foreign because every time I saw those leads get cut to 1, I'm like, oh, it's over. It's over. They're going to come down and score on the next. No, they got to stop. In Denver yesterday, I think they got to stop. The ball went out of bounds. They had another chance with 9 seconds left, and they got another stop. So that's kind of cool to be able to see because we did think this was going to be a team with a defensive identity, and they got the doors blown off them after those initial couple games. And I referenced it before, but in the last 6, they've been more defense in the NBA. So if that holds up, they're talented enough offensively where they'll be in a lot of games against almost anybody.
This team can also take a punch in the mouth. The Nets have been the best third quarter team in the NBA since this trade. And that's a very weird and niche stat, I have to admit. But they have had their leads evaporate. They've had other teams go on crazy extended runs against them, and they have not wilted under that pressure. They have been able to fight back against those runs. In that Nuggets game, I know a KD and Kyrie Nets team is losing that game. When we would blow leads like that and lose that big cushion that we had put together, that's a game that we would lose. And this team has shown an ability to be resilient because honestly, and I don't know if I can psychoanalyze these players, but I think it's because they know that like they're mentally strong enough to know that they can come back from that because they're always expected to come back from that, right? They're always expected to work together as a team. And Robin, you made the point about defense down the stretch. One thing I can't remember a time when Kevin Durant or Kyrie Irving passed out of a game-winning shot. Not even to each other, just passed out of a game-winning shot. If Kevin Durant was on the floor, ISO Kevin Durant, let's see if he can, be long enough to hit a 3 at the top of the key. If Kyrie Irving, let's see if he can dribble himself into oblivion, hit a step back. And they're great at that. They are arguably two of the best players in NBA history at that. But it doesn't work always. It doesn't. And we lost the Bucks series because of it. And we've lost plenty of games because of it. And now we have a team where if somebody else is open, and the theory of the Nets, especially during that 7-11 era, is that somebody else was always going to be open, you can actually pass out and hit those open three-point shooters so that they can take the shot. They trust each other to hit shots. And when they miss them, because they will and they have, they pick themselves up and they don't point fingers and they don't blame. And when we're looking at this season as a way to establish a good base, a good structure, a good foundation for this next era of Nets basketball, that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see a team that's fighting for each other and isn't going to get on each other in a negative way when things don't go their way. And that is invaluable, clearly, because when you look at a lot of the teams that have had success and won championships in recent years, you see teams that, as much as we may not like the Bucks or as much as we may not like the Warriors, have had longstanding cores that have good cohesion, and the Nets having that and growing that is huge.
I see. I've referenced it before. The comments under Mikal Bridges' Instagram post, the Nets just posted on Twitter team chemistry, and just from the screenshot that they posted, Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, Royce O'Neal, Edmund Summer, Patty Mills, Day'Ron Sharp, David Duke Jr. all in the one screenshot from Bridges. So there you go. I mean, this is a team that's together, that likes each other, and is feeling those vibes that are coming along.
I think I said this on a podcast before they actually hit the road, that when they have these road trips, it's bonding time for these guys. They go to different cities, they go to different restaurants, they have time in between games. If it's not a back-to-back, whatever, it's a real time for these guys to bond, and you'll figure out whether you have a team that's going to work or not. And the chemistry is showing on the floor, and these guys are taking the next step to put it on social media. A couple things. I do want Gene's comment back on the Summer Jam screen. Can we make that comment big? Put Gene back on the Summer Jam screen. And then I'll address Piper in the comments too.
Don't be the next contestant on that Summer Jam screen.
He said, "You dudes are zoot with that. Marks is good take. What do y'all want out of Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets? Like what honestly do you need to see, or do you need to have? All things considered, the return that Sean Marks got for two players is a great haul. And if you just look at the month it's been since that decision was made, those two decisions were made, what else do you need this guy to do? What else do we like? This is our GM for now. He was in the past, and he's gonna get a chance in the future to work with some picks. And like I'm over the dragging Sean Marks, because in business it isn't all one-sided. And I understand there's so many people that want to hate on Sean Marks for losing KD and Kyrie. They weren't doing anything. Right now, they could have the same record or worse with KD and Kyrie. Who knows where this would have gone? And this leads me to my next point, right? Because Piper was the one earlier in the chat talking about, oh, they don't have KD, Kyrie anymore. You're not winning a chip. You weren't winning a chip with KD and Kyrie anyway. And he's like, oh, well, it's all about stars. We know that, but we're not winning a championship this year. We are Nets fans enjoying this ride with the team we have post KD, Kyrie era. So far, so good. I'll take it. And what I'll say is, to Piper's last comment, can we stop talking about KD, Kyrie so much? No. And it isn't necessarily that we're obsessed with KD, Kyrie. We're talking about the Nets. They were on the team. This is the Nets after their era. You can't just blindly talk about the team like they did not exist. So It isn't an obsession with the guys. It's the fact that this is our team, our franchise. They were a part of it for the last 4 years. Now we're talking about the differences we see in the team, in the roster without them.
Also, the guys who are playing are all from that trade or those trades. 4/5 of the starting lineup has come from those trades. So you can't talk about, what you got without the context of what went into that. So we all know that. As far as Sean Marks goes, what exactly did the guy do wrong? What exactly has he done wrong?
He should have gave Kyrie his extension.
No, he shouldn't have. The Ben Simmons trade, the Harden trades, both the Harden trades, I think you could look back on.
He should have forced KD to stay, even though KD was the first one to request a trade.
Both of those trades for Harden, you could look back and say were bad trades in retrospect.
Oh, yeah. I'm mad at him for bringing on Ben Simmons. That was stupid.
But
I'm mad at him for that. The only GM dumb enough.
Nobody's perfect. And in the big picture, the Nets probably had one of the worst situations, if not the worst situation in basketball history, when Sean Marks essentially took over after the KG Pierce trades with no assets. And he built them into a team that was then desirable for stars. He then signed Kevin Durant, he signed Kyrie Irving, and he acquired James Harden. Really, the mistake is not being able to manage some of those guys to a certain extent, but it's like, you couldn't manage. Go ahead and reason with a Wolverine. Who's supposed to manage
that? It's impossible.
It's already happened. I mean, look at what's happened. Once you see the Twitch streams and all that, you realize, I think you sort of get the patterns when you followed it for a while. And I've said it. I'm actually a little bit legitimately concerned for Kyrie, because I see the thoughtful, happy Kyrie, and then I see the I don't know what you call it, the maniacal or whatever, the one who's like ranting and raving about the world against him and how everybody's out to get him, Kyrie. And the mannerisms and the delivery are different. But we've seen it before. Like, it's like, all right, everything's good. And then all of a sudden there's some sort of post or there's some sort of stream. And it's like compensatory need to stir ish up. And whatever. I don't want to hammer that point home because I have moved on from being concerned about that. I'm just trying to emphasize that nobody, whether it's the Mavericks or the Cavaliers or the Celtics or the Nets, has been successful in harnessing that effectively. That's a Kyrie issue, not a Sean Marks issue. The KD thing was tied to Kyrie, obviously, to a certain extent, whether he says it or not. And now, having had those guys on the roster, whether those guys actually won, having had them on the roster allowed Sean Marks to then retool the roster. Because you're not in the situation you're in now without those guys on the team. Because, whether Kyrie was on the last year of his deal or not, you still got Spence and Dorian Finney-Smith, 2 starters right now, and a first-round pick. And then because of KD, you got 4 first-round picks, Cam Johnson, a possible core part of your future, and Mikal Bridges, the centerpiece of the franchise at this moment. That doesn't happen without those guys on the roster either. So simply by having them, what was also a move that Sean Marks was able to flip.
And also, I want to extend that comment to Joe Tsai. I don't understand. I'm going to ignore all of the people that say Joe Tsai should leave because that's just a gibberish take and doesn't mean anything. What is it that you wanted Joe Tsai to do in this situation? Just in the same way we asked, what did you want Sean Marks to do? What did you want Joe Tsai to do? Did you want Joe Tsai to pay Kyrie Irving? From a basketball perspective, what is that going to get you? He plays 48% of games, and that was a declining figure.
Bad business.
He's clearly getting worse. That's bad business. What did you want him to do? Did you want him to force KD to stay on the Nets and win what? I don't
do that. KD doesn't do that. KD always runs and joins the next super team.
The purpose of a NBA governor or owner, whatever you want to call them, is to increase the value of the franchise. There's a lot of other things that they do, but their sole job, because for them and all of them, it is an investment. Their job is to increase the value of the franchise over time. And Joe Tsai has done that. The Nets world, as we like to say, has been built. We are in a position now where we are a globally recognized, a globally known entity, and we can command the type of respect around the league, from the players in the league, that a globally respected entity deserves. And I don't want to put our guy on blast again, but can you throw, Alex, John Side's chat up in there? I think Keith wants to say something about it too. He says, in regards to what did Marks do wrong, let's start with hiring Nash, blowing up the team that went to the second round and letting key players walk, such as Uncle Jeff and Bruce Brown.
The Denver Nuggets.
On one hand, you could say that. You could say that team was an injury away from winning a championship. And maybe they were. But Bruce Brown didn't want to stay on the Nets, and Uncle Jeff is old. Hiring Steve Nash was clearly an L, but the logic was there. I understand that the NBA is a results-driven business, and it is, and everyone will be judged on the outcomes of things. But when it comes down to it, I think it was 3 years ago last week that they announced the Steve Nash hiring. And Keith and I were ecstatic. And the argument was there, right? You bring in a former all-time great, a Hall of Famer, a 2-time MVP to coach MVPs, to coach Hall of Famers, to coach All-Stars. And I find it hard to criticize him for that. I'm sure there were other things. His lack of a coaching resume was there, but there's a logic there. And it just doesn't make much sense to me to point to ownership and the GM as being somehow at fault for the Nets, not winning a championship when all their stars are hurt? I just don't get it. Robin, I think you're on mute.
He's not perfect, right? Sean Marks, who Keith is holding up a picture next to. No one said he's perfect. But First of all, and I loved what Jeff Green brought to the Nets when he's here. I loved it. He's played on 20 teams. Jeff Green's been on 20 teams. Whatever it is, I think it is legitimately like close to double figures right now. Is Bruce Brown better than Royce O'Neal? I don't know if you can. Yeah,
bro, we had to get rid of Bruce. Like, what are we
so
talking about?
These are like
we're talking about Jeff Green and Bruce Brown right now, and these are the same people talking about championships.
And Alex, our producer, writes in something about he's better than Patty. Patty Mills is a good person to have on the roster. I like Patty Mills.
Shout out to Patty for the Bucks game.
Yeah, I'm tired of people complaining about Patty too. He's like he's barely plays. Every time he plays, he's ready to go, and he's a chemistry builder. And again, another note to that chemistry: Edmund Sumner replied to. First of all, he doesn't know that you have to put a period in front of somebody's name if you want everybody to see the tweet, but he quote tweeted the Nets tweet about the chemistry that I referenced before. Bridges, I like it here a lot. Instagram post with all the Nets commenting under it. And Sumner said, Mikal Bridges is the same humble person he was back at Villanova. Hasn't changed no matter how much success he's having. Can't help but celebrate his success. He's doing it at a high level. Respect. Been there. And then Bridges said, my dog on top of it. So, who show yourselves if you don't like this team. Like, what is it about this team that is not to like? That's what I don't understand.
This fan base just has too many anonymous weirdos that like never show their face and just want to always talk about something in the negative. It just always has to be something that they don't like. The never happy Nets fans. Like, I've been going through this for a long time. Can never just be like, hey, all things considered, this ain't bad. This is all right. Let's play this voicemail so we can get out of here. We only have one voicemail. We're looking for some reviews. So if you're listening and you're on Apple, pause, go write that review, come back, and finish this episode.
Do you believe? Shout to Talkin Nets. Shout to Keith and the rest of the panel, Hudson and Rob, I believe. Shout to you guys. I believe. Do you believe? Do you Nets fans all outside believe? We should believe. Jacques Vaughn is staring his ship. He's seen an iceberg in the middle of the ocean. He whipped the ship, named champion, a championship. He whipped it around that iceberg, got us winning 5 out of 6. The Nets fans is still mad we lost that Buck game because we had 98 points coming from the bench. That shows that if Jacques Vaughn needs to go to the bench, we can score on the bench. And that's Seth Curry and Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas not getting minutes right now makes a lot of sense. I like the Titan rotation that Jacques Vaughn did. I'm impressed. I won't say a lot because I'm actually watching the show right now. So shout out to you guys.
Fan Breezy.
Yeah, man. Nets fans is the best fans we out here. And I think that we should be taken seriously as competitors. But a lot of the NBA is going to look over us. And I'm going to say right now, we are the favorite underdogs. We're not the favorites. We underdogs, but we the favorite underdogs. So, yeah, man, I'm here, man. Shout out to Talkin Nets.
Big fan Breezy, well done.
I see Alex Gonzalez write to comment in, and I wanted to get it in real quick before we got out of here. Nets fans got that Yankee title or bust mentality. It shouldn't be that way. I responded to a tweet yesterday. I believe it was from Jay in BK. But basically he said, because I had said, like, I love this Nets team or whatever, let's go. And he's like, well, the only thing that matters is a championship. And as I've gotten older, that's not true. That's not true at all.
None of the Nets seasons have ever mattered since Julius Erving.
Exactly. So, of course, the goal is to win a championship, right? The goal is to eventually win a championship. The job of management is to put the team in the best position to win a championship on a consistent basis, right? That's clear. However, only one team wins a championship every year. And if the championship is the only thing that matters, then you are setting yourself up for disappointment. Because you know what does matter? Being excited to watch the team play. I'm not playing. They're playing tomorrow. All right, got to watch them. Chanting "Let's go Nets" in my basement, watching the game with my kids. Seeing the team rally around each other, winning more games than you lose, envisioning what the next move that could be that happens that puts you into championship. All of those things do in fact matter. And again, the championship that the Nets supposedly won didn't happen either, guys. There was no championship. Eddie Gonzalez Banksy replied to something I said about the Nets winning the trade the other day on Twitter, and he said you could put that next to the Jay-Z concert banners. And then somebody else replied, I wish I could find the guy's name real quick. He said Jay-Z put up more banners at Barclays than Kevin did. Like that's the other part of it as well. Like maybe they could have, and it's always a benefit that Kevin Durant wore a Nets jersey, and brought that prestige to the Barclays Center, to the organization, to the franchise. That meant a lot, I do think, when you wind up looking back. But it's not like you threw away a championship for this current version. And this current version feels like more than a championship matters, when before it did feel like the only successful result was a championship, and that didn't happen.
And it didn't happen, but it also felt a little hopeless at times. For a lot of times before the trade, quite frankly, it felt a little hopeless because I knew we weren't giving Kyrie the max, so I knew he was gone, and I thought, well, that's probably going to be KD following with him. If you are in a position where you are thinking the only successful outcome is a championship, you are destined to be disappointed. We just want to have hope as sports fans. That's all we want. We all want to be in a team where we can hope, whether it's you're a Spurs fan and you're hoping you get Wembanyama, or you're, a Bucks fan and you're hoping for a championship. The Nets are in a position where we can hope, and we can hope to have a good showing, a proud showing in this playoffs, and then we can hope to put ourselves in a position to win a championship. But this last era, I can't help but feel was a little hopeless at times, especially when the stars weren't playing and they didn't play so often. And we're in a position now where we have hope, and we have a young team, an exciting team, a team that we can root for. And look, I hate to say it, just like Joe Tsai said, Brooklyn wants this team. Brooklyn wants this team to win. They like this team. This is Brooklyn's team. And it's just a great vibe around the team. And at this point, what is there left to complain about, quite frankly?
All right, to wrap this up in the next 2 minutes, some news just came in from Brian Lewis. Nerlens Noel's 10-day ostensibly ends on Wednesday, so he can play tomorrow at the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Nets would need to make a decision whether to let him go or sign him to a second 10-day contract. Brooklyn hosts the Kings on Thursday. Yo, shout out to Kessler Edwards. That just made me think about Kessler Edwards and the video I saw of him getting defensive player of the game. I'm happy for that young man. He's got an opportunity. For a while, he didn't really get a shot this early on in the season after contributing a little bit last year. He goes over there. He's with a young team that's emerging. Congrats to him. I'm not mad at Sean Marks for letting him go. That one kind of goes by the wayside with the rest of the trade deadline stuff. But the last thing I'll say is this. Like, you can't please everybody, right? I'm talking about these Nets fans. There's Nets fans that I guess are just like stands in the Nets world where, like, we're winning and they're upset about Cam Thomas. Like, come on, yo. We're winning. And there are people coming at Sean Marks still for what happened a month ago. We're winning, and people are saying that Joe Tsai should sell the team. So you can't make everyone happy. It is what it is. Last but not least, let's go to the standings to just remind everyone, right? The Celtics up there at number 2. Their fans are scrambling right now. They're 6-4 in their last 10. The 76ers, I guess their fans are all right with what they have, but reports are James Harden wants to go back to Houston. So if they don't win a championship this year, what about the process? The Cavaliers, they are a shaky 4 seed. They could stay there. They could potentially fall back. But you're Brooklyn
We've also
Nets.
got 2 games against them coming up.
Yeah, and we'll see what they're actually really about. Shout out to Jared Allen. I feel bad for our guy Big J, but Bam Adebayo hit him in the eye, and he had no smoke for him. I think he was really hurt. We always called Big J a gentle giant. I felt bad to see him walk off with help, and I don't know how long he's out, but he's affected. Your Nets are in 5th place. I told you guys, hey, let the Knicks fans have their party. They had a 9-game win streak. The city is back under old management. Let them have their fun with all of that. It was part of it. But now that's done. Jalen Brunson is hurt, and they're scrambling a bit. They get a win last night against the Lakers, but the Lakers are without LeBron. Think about what Lakers fans feel this season, right? As we're talking about Nets fans and their expectations, think about what these Lakers fans are feeling. All they got was LeBron breaking Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record in a Pau Gasol jersey retirement this year. And other than that, man, coming up the next few games, which we already just mentioned one, and that'll be when the Nets actually return home. But tomorrow they'll face the Oklahoma City Thunder, very winnable game. Then they face the Beam team. Let's see what the Kings look like when they come to New York. Then we run it right back with the Nuggets in Brooklyn. So I know I said I'm not going to the game. That Thursday game and that Sunday game, they look really interesting if you're interested in going seeing some live Brooklyn Nets basketball. Then we've got the home and home with the Cavs. So we're going to figure out a lot coming up real soon. Any last words, guys?
Let's go Nets.
Send us
That's
out,
it.
Keith.
That's all we've got. It could be a lot worse. All things considered, the Never Know Nets are winners right now. And yes, they are probably the number one team as far as looking at teams to upset, teams that can scare a top seed, teams that like you don't want to face in the first round. They're looking like that team. I'll take that. Our world, Nets world. Let's go Nets. Let's go Nets. Bro.